we think Elton John's in the test site. We think he's a skewing factor in the reason why the AOV and the RPV tanked or appeared to tank so heavily, because actually it was unnaturally high. And of course we had a look in the data, and there he was in the control. So basically he'd spent all his money in the control side of the test, which made the experiment look really bad.
You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-com strategy, technology and CX focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialists James Gurd and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-com strategy of leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX. This episode is sponsored by Shopify. Got an interesting topic today. It's all around data and the context of data and being able to understand data to make better decisions for e-commerce websites and drive performance improvements. With a kind of dual part, we're going to start on confessions of an experimentation expert. That's nice to get your interest. And there's some intriguing stories about where tests gone wrong because of some real outliers and why it's so important to understand the context of that. Then we're going to evolve into a e-commerce platform that is helping brands improve like contextual marketing, merchandising on the site. So that's the intro. That's what we're trying to do today. And a warm welcome to our guest, who's Warren Cowan, who's the CEO and founder at FoundIt. How you doing, Warren?
I'm fantastic. Thanks, James. We appreciate you having me. And thanks for calling me an expert. Only an expert because I've got so many things wrong.
Well, but this is the thing, isn't it? I'm having, saying just before we start recording, I do just done a big re-platforming project. And I've heard people say, is that your expertise? I say, well, I still get things wrong. I still learn. And this is the most important thing, is that if you don't make mistakes, you can't learn. So. Yeah, exactly. So I'm really looking forward to it. So before we get into the questions, it'd be really interesting for you to share your background and founder story and I guess how you've got to your current technology project.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I ran a digital agency for 20 years. I think we were talking about Greenlight earlier. That was the agency that I ran. So I founded that, built it, ran it. That was a 20-year journey focusing on, we started on SEO, moved out to other performance marketing, and other sort of digital methods after that. And about halfway through that journey, what we found was that every time we wanted to improve a business's digital marketing, we had to go back and change things about the website. And the more we did that, we started to think, wouldn't these be better if we built the sites the way that we kind of wanted to use them at Anger? So we actually had a bit of a step back moment. We thought, you need to start building sites. So we started building websites and we started to, we built out a systems integrator, an e-commerce systems integrator. We started doing SAP Hybris work. We started doing Demandware as well, Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And, so we worked with different platforms. We started to build the sites as well. And we spent the first part of our careers always looking externally, thinking, well, how is it we help customers outside the business find the products that the business sell? And the more we did it, the job of building the sites, the more I started to uncover this idea of customers are struggling to find products on the site. The whole customer experience piece is an enormous part. And you think when we put a lot of websites together, we love an accelerator, don't we? Anything that can help us get all those things out of the box, just that extra bit quicker, standardized grids, standardized templates, cookie cut, the dynamic system helps our site stand up out of the box. And that was when we started to tune into these finer issues that actually was still a real problem for customers to find the right product on the site in the noise of thousands, to navigate through PLPs and do search and find the right, arriving on a PDP, trying to expand the view. So we encountered all these other issues. And so we built a lot of technology to help optimize websites for their external projection, for things like Google and stuff like that. And so we started to bring that technology to start to focus more internally on the websites as well, and creating a better experience that was more in tune with what we could understand people were looking for. And that technology stack just grew and grew and grew and eventually became what is now FoundIt, which is basically a technology platform that can help a retailer understand customer intent, work out what it is that customers are looking for on any page, any touch point, and work out how to optimize the journey to make those things easy to find and buy. whether that comes in through the PLP or the homepage or search, or it's a PDP, wherever the customer is, you always want to be able to go, I think I know what you're looking for. It's this way. Let me help. And that is what we kind of felt was the real missing piece in the e-commerce operation. Everything was built for customers to come into the site and find their way, muzzle through, as we call it. But actually, it was never ahead of them, helping them, guiding them, leading them. Going, I got you. Here's what you want a camera back? No problem. We got 20 of them. They're right here. Let me help you. Let me help you break that down. There was nothing that was doing that, and so that's really where we started to apply our focus. And the more we did that, the more we saw the experience improve, saw conversion improve, and that's really how the FoundIt platform came to be.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because having been in the industry an equally long time, over a couple of decades, I came from a marketing background initially, and intent was really strong in terms of marketing strategy and understanding.
Yes.
And in e-commerce at the start, it was very functional, wasn't it? And then you're starting to see the application of those marketing principles into the e-com technology stack. And now I think as the tech's advanced so much, that the ability to do this is increased exponentially. So I find it really interesting to see how strong the tech is evolving in this digital space. So looking forward to get into a bit more details. But before we get onto the platform itself, I want to talk about the contextualization of data, because obviously the critical thing about what you're doing from a technology point of view is using data signals to understand intent to improve context. But I wanted to start based on a few posts you put out on LinkedIn recently, which I loved, which was about tests that you run. So you're obviously using all this data, you're finding opportunities and ideas, and you're testing them and learning what works and what doesn't work. But posting out some really interesting ones where you've had what look like really good tests that have been impacted by outliers or, really unexpected issues creeping into test or control cells. And I thought this would be a really good starting point, because I don't think a lot of people necessarily think about that. How do you triage tests and make sure and scrutinize so you've properly understood that the data and the results are reliable? So I want to start initially with one question, which is it easy to misread test results and make compromises?
It's incredibly easy to misread test results. I mean, I should probably preface what I'm saying is that I didn't build out an expertise in conversion rate optimization and testing. We took testing on as a commitment, really, it FoundIt to prove the methodology of what we were doing. What we're telling people to come in and change their websites, orientate them this way, change your operations, change this part of your stack. It requires a lot of justification for anyone to do. You can't get anything done on a roadmap without a business case and so on and so forth. So it became absolutely essential for us to prove that if you design your site, as we call it, structuring it around customers rather than catalogs, you will see an improvement in the business. So we hope that when customers more of them are finding and buying, you'll see that in your engagement rates, in your add to cart rates, in your basket rates. So we had to become experts in testing what it was that we were doing. And so you start by testing, I suppose, the most easiest, the most obvious kind of metrics, which pretty much go right up to the ball, which is, does the conversion rate go up? Right? It's going to be very hard to justify a significant project, tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, pounds, if it's not going to improve any kind of a core metric that drives the business. So we started focusing on the conversion, but then people always want to know about the other metrics as well, the AOV and the RPV, and specifically the RPV, because the RPV is, if you like, often held up as that gold revenue per visitor. That's the gold metric, right? Which is the AOV, the conversion rate, and the users all kind of smashed together into one, which kind of makes it a really dangerous metric. Because when you're measuring conversions either happen or they don't, right? They're quite binary. So it's very, very easy to test and to get a good statistical measure on that. Whenever you start to bring in AOV, average order value, or the basket value, and then you start to use that as a amplifier or a factor against the others, you're not in a binary did they convert? Didn't they convert? Did they buy $100 worth of stuff? Did they buy 250? Did they buy a £2,000 couch? What was it? Was it a $10 lipstick? What was it that they actually bought? And so now you're trying to track a metric which is going all over the place through massive peaks and troughs over different days. It's never the same on any given moment. And that has the ability to sway your reading of the test, particularly as you go to the RPV, which is the revenue per visitor. So you might have increased the conversion rate, but there's just been a few more sales or a few less sales of a particular type of product at a particular type of price point. And now that AOV is skewing the revenue per the number of visitors that you had and that you converted. And you can see very, very different results. So sometimes the gold metric that they want to hold up of RPV is oftentimes one of the most dangerous metrics and the easiest to misread when you get the test, because you can increase the conversion rate. Everything can look fantastic, but then everyone wants to know, oh, you look like you made a few pounds less there on the average order value in that test segment. It's like, potentially, yes. There's no statistical indication of whether that's significant or not, but any focus on any of these metrics that seems to go the wrong way often gets misinterpreted in the light of what is obviously should be the primary one, which is more people bought. We now have more customers. People get quite hung up, and especially if it skews heavily in the wrong direction, which I think that's what I'm asking about.
What do Mattel, Victoria Beckham, Sennheiser, and Glossier all have in common? They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet. It also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. Shopify, powering the future of enterprise commerce. Find out more at shopify.com/enterprise.
Yeah, exactly. And there's three examples you shared, which I love. And for those listening, it involves celebrities. What more do you want on a podcast? Like insight and expertise on how to be better at doing something, whilst discovering how random celebrities can screw up your A/B testing. And
yes, I would argue two of them are celebrities. One will be very, very much isn't. You're absolutely right. Celebrities, things you did plan for, things you couldn't have seen coming at the top.
Yes. And I think everyone who's worked in ecom for long enough and done enough like projects and tests can attest to the fact that something weird can happen where it just screws up all of your planning. So let's go into these examples, because I'm going to start with one that shouldn't have made me laugh, because I know it involved like screwed up work and having to rethink things through. But can you explain to our listeners how Elton John killed a test for Matches Fashion?
He did, yes. I'm not intentionally, clearly. But
maybe he did.
They brought him in specially. So obviously we were running a lot of tests on matches at the time, and everything was looking very, very good. Actually, the conversion rate was all going in the right direction, and AOVs kind of holding very, very similar levels. And then it got to the end of the test. I think no one had looked at the. You should always let the test run. People get very caught up in looking at every little bump in the road on a test, but we let it run, and we got to the end of the 4-week period. I think we ran the test for, and about halfway through, the conversion rate looked like it was really, really strong in the test, but the AOV had tanked, at least in the test segment. But what had actually happened was the AOV hadn't tanked in the test segment. It had gone up in the control segment. And what had happened was that Elton John, who was a really big fan of Matches Fashion, and I'm sure we've all seen his wardrobe on the news. The man is a fan of eye-wateringly priced clothing of all sorts. He was a really big fan of Matches Fashion. He was one of their VIP customers, and he had gone to the site, was Entourage maybe, had gone to the site, and they had bought hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of clothing and items over a series of different sessions. And what had happened was that user had gone into the control side of the test. And so now that user was now creating a very, very small number of very, very high value sales, which obviously overall makes the average order value against all the users look far higher, based on the total revenue on that side of the test, and actually makes the experiment looked quite poor. But nobody knew this until after the test had finished, because when the test had finished, that high AOV had led to a very low AOV by comparison, and a very low revenue per visitor in the test segment. And so everyone thought that comparing the two, that the test had hurt sales. So even though that the conversion rate had improved, overall the business had made less money, and the business wasn't interested in anything that could make them less money, at least in the comparison between the two segments of the test. So, we got kicked into touch. We sort of getting our coat ready to sort of leave through the side door. And then, it's almost like, you couldn't have planned it. The television was on in the office, while we were working, and Sky News playing on or something like that going on in the background. And, Elton John's on. We stopped to look at hear what Elton John's talking about, and he's talking about his antics and the fact he got some upcoming tour dates, and he's just had a massive splurge at Batch's Fashion. And like, oh wait, he's just spent how many thousands of pounds at Batch's Fashion? I thought, no, it couldn't. That would have been just over our test. I wonder which segment he went into. And that's when we brought this idea back to the testing team, when we think Elton John's in the test. We think he's a skewing factor in the reason why the AOV and the RPV tanked, or appeared to tank so heavily, because actually it was unnaturally high. And of course we had a look in the data, and there he was in the control. So basically he'd spent all his money in the control side of the test, which made the experiment look really bad. Just for that short period of time.
I know. Curse him, and that's. I'd like to think that there's Elton John late at night on the Matches Fashion website, and he's just sat there with his credit card out, getting ready to place it, rather than his team, who've probably taken off.
I think he's more of a PayPal man. But
the other one which is, I get, not so celebrity, but equally interesting, is about how the New York Police Department went big on Ray-Bans and had another impact on a control segment.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very similar situation. New York's Finest just chimed in on one of our tests. We were testing on the Ray-Ban site, and conversion looking good, consistent, up all the way through the testing fact. However, again, just like Elton John, someone in the New York Police Department had decided that they were going to come in. So you'd think they'd have a procurement portal for this sort of stuff, but apparently not. Someone had come in and basically purchased several precincts worth of Ray-Ban sunglasses. All I can think of is chips, with the sort of mirror aviators, but basically purchased hundreds and hundreds of pairs of these sunglasses, and they all went into that control side of the test, which of course meant that the AOV soared and the RPV obviously looked really, really strong, and of course that meant that the RPV in the experimental side of the test obviously appeared to tank. And so again, nobody wanted to hear anything about it. It was one of those, a test has lost us money. And I think that's the hard thing that I think, that's the misread. I think that's the core of the misread. This test has lost us money, but we've got loads of more customers, but somehow we've made less money. And that paralyzes decision making. It creates a fear state, especially when it's something that no one appears to be able to explain as well. Because when you do a test, you often get to the end of it and it's like, oh, this one won, or this one was appeared to outperform, and we have a 95% chance of statistical chance that this was didn't occur by chance. But you don't have a lot of underlying information unless people want to go through the raw individual transactions and use your statewide data. There's a lot of data typically, and people tend to want to, they've done the test, they've got that, finally they want to move on. And there's a lot of that temptation is to sort of take it as read and move on. And I think no one does the deep dive and looks at the nuances behind the numbers. Especially when there's a negative factor. People just can't get over it.
Yeah, I think there's a real emotional side to it, because when you test, and especially if you feel like you've got a great idea and that test is negative, there's a real like, oh God. But equally, I think the important outtake I get from this is you've got to be really crystal clear on what the objective of your test is and what success measure is, because you can measure so many different metrics, and you can have external influences that can change one or more of those. But if there's a key behavior that you're trying to influence positively and you can measure that succinctly, then if other KPIs change and you can validate that those are changed through other influences, then your test can still be successful.
Yeah, I think you really hit on that. There's a key behavior. There's a key behavior you're trying to influence, and you structure the test around that. But there's always this overshadowing backdrop of the business has its KPIs, and its KPIs should drive the business and everything, all the decisions that it's making. There was a really great article. I can't remember who wrote it. It was quite a while ago. It was about Amazon and the way that they do measurement, and they talked about finding what drives what. Very, very simple kind of concept. What drives what? And, being able to explain metrics all the way back to collections of things that influence behaviors, and you influence enough of the right behaviors in enough direction. We know that they all drive these behaviors, which drive these behaviors. And that's how they design the business. And I have found that, a lot of retailers, despite doing some of their best efforts in testing, they understand that they should probably try to test what works and test the behaviors and try and influence them, but they can't escape that management level kind of overarching, or did we make more money or did we not make more money, which everything seems to come down to. You can almost see this. There's a little bit of a burn the boats culture in the conversion rate optimization space at the moment. We're trying to pull people away from focusing so resolutely on at the end of the funnel revenue, and trying to actually break that down and work out what's actually influencing the journeys on the inside, and actually having this kind of positive inquiry approach where we try to get more of all the behaviors that we know moving in the right direction, moving more in the right direction, and working that all the way through the funnel and not allowing skewing factors to come through.
So let's get into the FoundIt side of things now and understand a bit more about that platform, because user intent, that discussion comes up more and more with e-commerce businesses I work with. It's done to varying degrees. Some it's basic segmentation. We change a bit of content. For others, it's mainly just about the product piece. And obviously, user intent can have influence across all user journeys. So I think if we really let's start about with your definition. Like, what does it mean when you're saying delivering contextual shopping experience? Like, what are you trying to achieve?
I think when everything boils down, for at least for us anyway, everything boils down to trying to get ahead of the customer, right? We want to be able to match, support, and inspire how the customer wants to shop. That's the MO, right? And that's really, whether I exist or intent exists or not, that really should be the MO, I think, of all retailers. If the customer comes in and finds that, they're going to be able to find the right product quicker amongst all the noise, be able to make a confident buy decision and become a customer. If the harder we make that, the more likely they are to defer to easier options, going back to Google or trying looking on Amazon. As you said in the piece that you wrote for us, they're always one click away from a bounce, right? It's very, very easy for them to find the product that they want somewhere else. So we've got to create an experience that matches, supports, and inspires how they want to shop. The way that we do that is by trying to understand how and what it is that people are looking for as they're coming in through different touch points of the site. And if we can do that, we can create a customer experience that shapes around the customer rather than the catalog. We're trying to get away from this catalog driven, dynamic, templated, cookie cut mess that is just spat out by plugging a catalog structure into an e-commerce engine, pushing out a load of PLPs in various hierarchies. There's your mega nav. You can search it if you want. You'll muddle through, go nuts, fill your boots. What we're really trying to do is be able to get ahead of the customer every step of every journey, every touch point, every combination of touch points to go, was that because you were thinking of? Fantastic. No problem. They're this way. Let's go. And let me help you get from the noise of 30,000 products down to 10 so you can make that choice of one. and get you on your way faster, quicker, less accurate. And that's really the goal that we're trying to pursue. And to do that, you have to be able to understand at every touch point or combination of them, what is it the customers are trying to find? And that's how we look at intent, customer intent. We're trying to back what that means. Customer intent is, what is the user trying to find? What is it they're trying to do? What's the mission? What they're trying to fulfill? And basically try and make that as easy as possible for them.
Yeah, and that you've got a really impressive brand portfolio. Brands like Ukes, M&S, John Lewis. There's some big retailers on there, and I've had lots of conversations with people where I think sometimes this whole like contextualization is misread as just actually want to show the right products to people, and that's one part of it. But coming back to the point you just made about what is it people want is depending on the user or the product or how you purchase and what info you need, your intent to purchase could be really low, and you could be in a discovery phase, and actually what you need is beyond just here's the top selling product, and you need something else. You might need buying guides, you might need persuasion messaging, all these different things. So I'd love to hear like some practical examples from the people you work with. What are some of the use cases of how people have used like intent signals to make better decisions or change what they're doing?
Well, there's a few, I think, that kind of stand. I mean, there's millions of applications of it, but there's a few that kind of stand out and we see again and again and again. The first thing that is probably the most common one that we see across everybody is trend gaps. So this is where customers are looking for something. It's maybe emerged as a new idea. Maybe it's emerged as a trend. Maybe something's driven it. Like Barbiecore was a big one, right? Hot pink, anything in hot pink. That was a trend. Something called Barbiecore after the Barbie movie. And people start looking for it. And they start going to Google, they start landing on retailers, they start putting it into search bars, they're looking for categories, they're looking for it, and they don't see it, right? So that's what comes the trend gap. And all retailers have this. It's because, again, coming back to this, customers, not catalogs. The catalog has designed how you can navigate the site, right? The catalog is dictating how you can find information, the structure of it with it. And customers searching myriad of vibes, a lot of which are driven by trends. And they arrive on site and now they're looking for something and it doesn't really appear to be there. It is there, but the retailer hasn't really named it, described it, attributed it, organized it into those collections. So I remember on Ukes, Let's Porter, we had lug-soled boots and milkmaid dresses coming out of the woodworks. And there's like, well, what's a milkmaid dress? What's a lug-soled boot? It's like, well, actually, it's a We know what that is. We can identify that in the product information, but the retailer hasn't got that information to organize their products or to tag their products. And so customers are coming in and they're missing it. And of course, once we've spotted that can all feed straight into the system. Data can be enriched, categories can get created, attributes and facets, journeys can be supported. And now the customers can find the sort of trend that they can sort of really want to look onto. I guess another aspect of using intent signals in improving the experience is to plan and organize the category better. So we were working with the DIY site who, I was on one particular category. I think it was back boxes. I don't know if you know what a back box, maybe your viewers know what about. If you've ever done any wiring in the house, the back box is what you put in the wall. Your wires come into it, you put the plug plate onto it, and that's what gives you your plug socket. In the house, all goes behind. And, we were navigating through the back boxes section. There's 450 odd of these back boxes. That's a lot of back boxes. How are we going to break this collection down? How are we going to enable the customer to filter it? What do you think the first filter menu was on back boxes?
Oh, on the site, the current site.
Yeah, on the site.
Would have been something probably weird like material color or something like that.
It was color.
There we go. Because I worry about my back box color massively. It stresses me.
Of course you do. What's it in the wall there behind the plasterwork? Yeah. It's really important what color it is, right? And then I think it was brand. I could tell you a brand of back box from a hole in the wall, no pun intended. And it is like, okay, so this is not how, and again, I'll come back to this: match, support, and inspire how the customer wants to shop. That's the MO for any given day. So how do we use the intent signals to work that out? And what we can see is that, the movement for products, we can see how people arrive in the category, what they search for after they move out of the category. And we can see that actually, what is it that you really want when you're buying a back box? Not the most exciting product collection, so forgive me, but what is it you really want when you're buying a back box? Well, maybe it's the number of plugs that I want on the back box. Okay, great. And the great thing is they've got this data, but they're not using it to expose the filters that they present to the customer. Then it's going to come down to, well, what color is it? Well, is it metal or is it plastic one? What's trending right now? Actually, there's USB ones where they support being able to plug your USB directly into a plug socket. Those are the other things that customers are looking for. So by understanding this information, you can go, right, we don't have our taxonomy organized properly. We haven't got our product attributes defined correctly. Our data is not enriched thoroughly. We go back to the products in the category and redesign that system. So that's kind of the planning prioritization side of things. Again, trying to make sure that when a customer comes in, the browsing experience matches, supports, and inspires how they want to shop for that particular group of products. Okay. Then you'll have something that's more expertise driven. So I think, or educatively driven. We're trying to educate the customer. And I think as retailers, it's very easy to get caught up in the expertise that we have on our own products, but not realizing that the customer isn't an expert in buying that particular product. So if I go into B&Q and I'm looking for taps, I might just go to the search engine and just type taps. Okay, great, there's 2,000 taps. What, now what do we do? What do you want to lead me to browse and paginate through 2,000 taps? Well, no, let's start with how customers are going to break this down. So you're probably going to, is it kitchen? Is it outdoor, indoor? It's the kitchen. Brilliant. So then you go to the kitchens page, you go, and all I know is that I want one of those taps that kind of goes over like that. And it's got the pulley outy bit that you can whoosh around the sink. But I don't know, I've got the words. I haven't got the right language to describe that yet. I haven't worked that out. It's a bit like when you ever go into HMV as a kid and try to, have you got that song and you have to embarrassingly sing the song to the guy behind the counter just to try him tell you what that song is. Yes, that song. Have you got that song? It's kind of like doing that. But then, you can present, well, okay, you want to pull out a pull-out tap. A pull-out, I think that was called a pull-out tap. So, yes, I'd like a pull-out tap. Great. Here's the 10 pull-out taps, or here's the 50 pull-out taps. So now we've got the customer down to a selection. Even though they didn't know how to describe what it was that they actually wanted, we've helped guide them through the options that actually have led them to the right product. And then I think one of the most exciting ones that we've been working on in terms of using intent signals is working with M&S on creating inspirational architecture. And one of the briefs that they gave us was to create a more engaging experience. M&S are maniacally customer focused. They want to get everything right for the customer, and they're trying to find new ways to engage, especially their younger groups of customers as well. And they wanted us to improve their holiday shop. So the holiday shop is, it's got maybe 800 or 1,000 products in it, and it's organized very logically. And I think all retail, it's not their fault, all retail websites are organized very logically, very functionally. Do you want a dress? Yes. Do you want a black one? Do you want a white one? Do you want a long one? But actually the customer's not thinking in terms of these functions yet. They're thinking in terms of their mission. They're thinking in terms of the aspirations, the lifestyle things that they hope to want to do, the problems and use cases that they're trying to solve. And they wanted us to build that into the navigation. And so on the holiday shop, rather than it being, there are swimsuits and there are tops and there are dresses and there are trousers and there are, all of these different kind of clothing categories, it was organized more around the mission, which is, so you're probably going to the beach. Okay, well, what's going to the beach? Okay, well, that's a straw hat, it's a tote bag, it's some water bottles, it's some towels, and being able to create these product assortments that fulfilled the missions and the lifestyle aspirations that we knew that customers had and wanted to achieve. And so we created a navigation that actually, and the assortments that supported that kind of experience and interrogation of the category. So you could go into a holiday shop and it would be, well, you probably want doing comfortable travel, or you're doing a city walk, or you're heading to the beach, or you're stepping out at night, want to look glam. And so basically being able to assemble all of the products and create these assortments and these journeys for customers, that drove a lot more engagement in the category, and meant that a lot more people found a lot more product and a lot more product got viewed as a result. So again, it all comes back to, if you understand what it is the customer's trying to do, you understand what it is they're most likely to want, you can formulate that into the collections, the journeys, the options that match, support, and inspire how they want to shop the category, rather than relying on them actually knowing it and being able to muddle through the site to find it.
And in terms of like intent signals, how many do you capture? Because there are so many behavioural event-based signals that you can get out of a browsing session.
Yeah, I mean, without wanting to bamboozle anyone or go into the algorithm in too much depth, essentially what we're trying to work out is, for any page of the site, you could take any page you want. It could be a search page, it could be a product page, maybe it's a PLP, even the home page. We're trying to understand what the next step, what the likely next step of the customer is going to be, okay? Or the likely next request for information is going to be. And in order to do that, we're trying to understand all of the people that flow through a particular point and flow out of that particular point. So it's like a big, massive two-way funnel. All the people that are going in, all the people that are going out, and trying to work out all the different things that they came in with and all the things that they moved out to. And what are those particular pursuits? What are they trying to find when they're doing that? And that's the information that we crunch. And, that can mostly come from analytics. And that's going to, we're going to be pulling hundreds of millions of rows of information a night for any retailer. So it's pretty big data. It's pretty big. And the reason we pull so much information, and this is a particularly different take from the personalization camp, because this personalization has got some phenomenal applications, but what it can't tell you is how everyone is doing something. But it can tell you what one person's doing, but there's often not enough information there to support what it is that they're actually trying to find. So you have to pull all of it together to go, okay, lots of people seem to be going this way. What is that? Oh, well, that's the subcategory of kitchen tabs. Okay, so kitchen, probably a big thing. What's the big thing in kitchen? Well, they do this and they search for that. They look at these things. Okay, so this feels like a modern style. So maybe that's an intent signal that we need to roll up inside kitchen. Does that make a lot of money? Does that convert very well? Do we have those products? So there's all this decision making. In another world, you might just call this merchandising, but we're doing it at such a data-driven scale. And that's really the benefit of AI that we've got, and the algorithms that we use. But it's essentially a data-driven picture of how customers want to navigate, and turning that into either navigation, product enrichment, attributes, tags, collections, assortments, just to make sure that we can support every single journey that the customer wants to take. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I guess the fact is it's across all journeys, isn't it? And this is a reality of what intent impacts every part of the site. It's not just a product page or a category page. It's search. It's the landing pages. And it's also then how that intent changes over time, because I could be on a site now and I could be low intent for a purchase. And then I can refine my intent in the next 2 or 3 sessions. And actually my product set that I'm looking at has shifted. I could be in the same category, but in a totally different brand or price range or style, because I've refined, and the algorithm has to learn and shift accordingly.
I think it's interesting you talk about that low intent part, because I think regardless of whether you have intent to buy or you don't have intent to buy, you still have a desire to find something, whether it is or not that you actually intend to buy it today. And you might be at different level of clarity on what that item is. And so that's a bit that sits actually above the funnel, in that intent piece, to try and work out, well, what is it that James is trying to find that maybe he's not ready to purchase yet. But if I don't help you find it, well, we're on a hiding to nothing, really, aren't we? So that's why we put this idea of prioritizing this journey optimization and findability at such a high level, because if everyone finds the thing that they're looking for, eventually everyone will be able to purchase. But, if we're only sort of working on the high intent, the people that have got that we know they're ready to purchase, firstly, there isn't the data there to clarify. And secondly, just fishing in the margins. So we want to make sure that every customer can find the thing that they're looking for, that every product is findable. And then we'll be able to move the retailer forward wholesale. It's kind of there's a different question that we ask, I think. And that's kind of our starting point for everything that we do, which is what if we knew what customers wanted? What would we do differently? And that's the big question. So what would we do if we knew what they want? What would we do differently? And that might be a collection of different things across different parts of the operation, different parts of the stack, different parts of the process. But again, it comes back to this organizing the site around the customer rather than the catalog, and going, well, in order to do that, you need to know what the customer wants at every touch point that they're going to. And that's really the objective.
Yeah, and I saw there was a testimonial on the site from M&S, the digital strategy manager, said about how FoundIt's helped them stay ahead in SEO. And I was interested to probe this more because that's quite a generic statement. I'd love to know what that really means, because is this about, because you talk about, obviously, your FoundIt is able to help with like product enrichment, attribute enrichment, which with richer data, you've got stronger on-page content. Is that it? Is that how you help them, or are there other specific areas in which the platform is supporting SEO strategies?
So this is an interesting angle. It's almost, you've got to flip it all on its head, really, to understand the SEO angle. The majority of retailers' SEO strategy relies on information architecture. How well are the categories all organized? How well are they orchestrated? How well do they break down around the keyword topics that customers actually are typing into Google? Right. That's essentially the main component of the SEO strategy. You've got to have the content organized in the right kind of architecture. And so what you find is that when you listen actually to the intent signals, when you realize that everyone in kitchen taps wants a pull-out tab, and everyone that wants a pull-out tab wants a vintage one or a chrome one or something like that, you actually design the information architecture around the search terms that customers are actually using, around the topics that they're actually going to Google with. So you have this kind of synchronicity between how people are searching outside of the website and the structure and the organization of the website itself. And when you have that, your SEO flies. And it's probably an interesting side note that FoundIt started out as a search engine optimization technology. What we were doing was automating SEO for our customers. And so we were working out, I remember there was one real standout example where, it was a cushions page. They had about 700, 800 cushions. And we were redesigning the facets and the navigation so people could find the right cushion more easily. And I think the most popular thing was Timeless Grey and Scandi. And of course, their rankings went up for that as well on Google. Because if you were going to Google and you were looking for a cushion, the most likely things that you were probably going to be looking for was a Grey cushion or a Scandi cushion. But also, the site is just a microcosm of that. So obviously, when we improved the experience on the site and made it easier to find a Grey cushion and easier to find a Scandi cushion, we were giving Google all the right signals that it needed to be able to go, this is a site we should probably rank for those terms as well. So when you understand how customers are looking for things and you're designing the site around that, you're giving Google everything it needs to rank the site stronger, because you're creating the information architecture and the cross-links and the depth and the breadth and the hierarchies around all of the topics that customers are typing in.
Yeah, and this is, we just did an episode around the AI overviews and Gen AI and AI agents in search, and actually it feels like we've gone full circle in technical SEO, because structured data and good semantic data has always been really, really important for indexation and for search engines understanding, and also really good structured and well organized data is good for people with assistive technology. So, the things that you want and should be doing. But now, as people get obsessed about AI driven search, it's renewed the interest in getting your data right.
You've got to get the data right. I think that's always, it's funny because whenever we were doing e-commerce re-platforms, the data was always the last thing that everybody thought about. You spend all this time getting all the things out of the box, building out all the features, designing all the structures, and then everyone would go, right, now we've got to get the product data over from we've got to lift and shift the product data from the old platform and get it into the new platform. And it's not fit for purpose. And I think that's what a lot of retail, and I've been on at this for almost most of my career now, even as a digital marketer, when when Google started doing shopping feeds, we had to get people's product feeds out from their site into a structure that Google could work with, which spent a huge amount of time optimizing product feeds. And I've still never seen any retailer conquer or any group of retailers conquer the great product feed with all of the rich data, all of the accurately attributed data, getting that data rich and relevant and accurate for every single product, to help make it more findable in your system, in Google's system, is also going to make it findable for every future system that's going to be based on AI as well. So getting the product data, and I often say it to our customers, start with the product data, everything else follows. Because once all the product data can be sliced, grouped, and matched to any conceivable customer requirement, any system that you then choose to work with will be able to create an experience. I keep saying it, that matches, supports, and inspires how a customer wants to shop. That's the kick, really is. You get that, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. That could open, I mean, to be honest, the whole like structured data, atomization data is up an entire new conversation. Probably spent hours talking about that alone. But look, we would be alone. Yeah. Look, I really appreciate you coming on. I've really enjoyed that actually. I'm sure the listeners got a load out of it. I loved the starting on the like the headline grabbing what Elton John bought to test, and then getting into like the contextual platform piece. So it's really interesting. For those listening, if you've got more questions or you want to push Warren and the team that FoundIt on like, what he's discussed, or get a better understanding of how it could support you with your on-site plans, then the contact details are on the landing page. Do reach out, or I'm sure Warren will be happy for you to LinkedIn message him just like I did.
Please do.
Warren, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, James. I really enjoyed talking.
Excellent. Take care, everyone. Until next time. You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by experienced consultants James Gurd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-commerce strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.